So this is the year of the masconomy, and whether you like it or not, this juggernaut is not stopping anytime soon. We've been predicting this year will leave you breathless with a cadence of developments and breakthroughs and scaling in all things AI, robotics, and space. And these are all key focus for Elon Musk's companies. I have Brian Wang with me. Brian is a futurist thought leader and runs the prominent science blog nextbigfuture.com. Welcome, Brian. What a start to the new year this has been.
It's going to be very exciting.
Absolutely. Okay, and a quick programming note for my audience and for Brian's audience, because Brian puts these chats of ours on his YouTube channel as well. I'll be hanging out with Brian every Thursday. We'll try and keep it as regular as we can. Of course, Brian he wears many hats, so it's always a privilege to get any time from his schedule. I really appreciate that, Brian. Thank you so much. Looking forward to a year and more of brilliant conversations with you every Thursday.
Yeah, looking forward to.
All right. So where do we begin? This has been quite the epic chat that Elon had with Peter Diamandis. So much to take away from it. You've written quite a really insightful article on your blog about Elon Musk, and I'm just bringing this on screen so people know, and I'll leave a link to this in the description below. There's so much to take away from this conversation that Elon had. You've covered a lot of this in your article. Do you want to take us through the highlights, the high notes for you?
So some of the high notes for me are that he's seeing this really big future of AGI, so AI getting to general intelligence, which generally means broadly equivalent or slightly superior to human intelligence, and then to super intelligence, where it's AI is broadly more capable than all humans, right? So that's the kind of level that we're talking about. But he mentioned specific metrics that he saw. He said that the intelligence density could be increased by 2 orders of magnitude, about 100 times, right? So what does that mean? That means instead of needing 100 gigabytes to have a particular AI model, you could put it into 1 gigabyte, right? So you can see that for your own computer on your desktop, you may have bought, a Mac Mini or a particular have a certain amount of memory inside your laptop, and running a local model. People have been trying to run local models, and they would get capped out. Very difficult to get an 8 gigabyte model in, and then some people spend $5,000 so they can put in a 50 gigabyte model. But a 1 gigabyte model would let you put really capable models inside cell phones, inside the Mac Minis, but also you could still get a still more capable model, but would have been a terabyte in only 10 gigabytes, right? So that's hugely impactful for what you can do locally.
Yeah.
On a wider system scale, that means that if we were going to do, say, the entire industry is going to go to some level, but we were then limited by, in this case, high bandwidth memory or SRAM, right? The production levels of that. Now we can go to 100 times more, say, for number of clouds and agents deployed. It would mean that we can go to a higher level. So it matters for the economics and where do things cap out. The more you work on these key metrics of more performance for less limited resources.
Yeah. So put this in context for us, Brian. Is this hardware 5, hardware 6? Is this with, can we expect this in 2026, 27, 28? Is this compute training and compute on Earth or off-world? What does this all mean?
So it's all of the above. And so it's, so they're trying to create, so hardware 4, hardware 4, hardware 5, being AI4, AI5 being the chips that Tesla's putting into Robotaxi or their cars, hardware 4 now, and then AI5 they can rebrand to AI5 instead of hardware 5, and then going up to hardware or AI8, each year. So constantly improving the chips that they're going to make for inference. So they're going to get competitive with that. And one of the advantages that Tesla has had is that they switched to their own hardware 3 and hardware 4 and away from the NVIDIA chips because they made them more energy efficient because they didn't want to suck, say, a kilowatt away from their electric cars. They want to have less power, but still get the same results. So they focused on that particular problem, which relates to the um, memory efficiency that Elon's seeing, where he's saying,
Right.
I can't get Micron or SK Hynix, the big companies that make the most memory. It's impossible for them to scale up 100 times. Or if they could, if I can get more bang for the buck, then that would be matter. So just like I want to get more compute for my full self-driving system in a car, so actual deployment of these systems needs this greater energy efficiency and greater memory efficiency, because they're both limited. If I'm saying everything's going exponential, then my exponential can go higher. With more deployment, my cost to deliver is also more. So it was go ahead.
No, complete your thought and then.
Yeah, it's an economic thing that he's talking about. So he's talking about this broad vision, but to the core of it is he's thinking economically about how do I scale more. And so like I want to scale more and have 100 million bots, a billion bots on Earth, along with 100 million cars, say over the next 5 years, right? Then having bigger and better chips, and then also making them more efficient so they need less memory means that what can I actually deploy? I can actually deploy something that would have needed a terabyte of memory. I can get by with 10 gigabytes of memory. I can have an AI 8 chip. So he's thinking about deployment of his systems, how to power them, and get them out there. And then and then launch into space, get more bang for the buck again.
Yeah. So okay, let's step back a moment, right?
Sure.
The age of abundance.
Mm-hmm.
The raw materials aside, there are two main factors: the unit cost of intelligence and the unit cost of labor.
Yeah.
This directly affects both.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that to us. Why and how?
So if a model can become more capable than a human, so that's starting to happen now. But right now, say we need a massive cloud, a supercomputer, center that's delivering these human equivalents, right? But then if I'm able to get that human equivalent into a smaller amount of hardware, then I can either get, say, 100 more human equivalents for the same hardware, or I can get 10 superhuman intelligences from the same hardware. So if you're converting these human equivalents of AI intelligence to regular people, either on a white collar job or going to blue collar, the less hardware I need. And so, how much does it cost to get a terabyte of memory? If it's high bandwidth memory, it could end up costing $100,000. If I end up going with a lot less, then it'll cost $1,000. So then I can replace a human with $1,000 of hardware versus $100,000 of hardware. So that clearly makes it more economic to get out there. And then, it's just this massive drops in cost. And he's also talked about a 10 times increase in intelligence every year. Previously, we've been going at about 4 times or so, 4 or 5 times. There's Epic AI website that tracks these kind of progresses and also looks at limitations, energy limitations, memory limitations, networking limitations. That this goes directly to that. By making it 100 times more efficient, I effectively have raised my potential up 100 times.
Yeah. You know what is scary? I think people don't understand the impact that this is going to have on societies,
right,
and nation states and economies. And I think you rightly pointed out this fact, but in your article as well, when Elon talks about the impact on society and social upheaval.
Right. Yeah. So in terms of he talked about predictions related to, applying it to medicine, making great surgery robots, human robots
Yeah.
are great surgeons, medicine, and then getting everyone having their own personal medical doctors that can have high quality they can talk to every time.
Yeah.
That goes to deployment. If
Like
I need to provide
within the next 5 years, 5 to 7 years is what he thinks this is, which is crazy.
Right. And that also goes to, if I make it more efficient, more capable, I can deploy faster. Like
Yeah.
if I would have had to have needed to make 1,000 exabytes of memory before I could fully deploy this capability, if I only need, 1 exabyte, then it just makes it easier. I only need to do $1 trillion worth of stuff. So economic and societal transformation talks about universal high income, mass productivity, where everything becomes cheap again, because you're think of it like the intelligence equivalent of the earlier industrial revolution, where manual labor got replaced with machines, gas powered, oil powered engines that would be able to move the equivalent of what you would need 100 horses to move, right? That you get that increased capability, and now we get more lift, more leverage from on the intelligence side, where each person can be the manager, director of 1,000 virtual AI equivalents of humans. But he says that the next few years, because we'll see there's risk of job losses in certain areas and job creation in other areas, there'll be, the change will be very quick. So there'll be fear, social unrest. And then another scenario they mentioned concern would be the Wall-E scenario, where everything goes great and then people become like the Wall-E fat couch potato kind of things.
Yeah. I just want to quote a few lines that stood out for me from this entire conversation that he had. So he says, AI and robotics is a supersonic tsunami. We are in the singularity, in the midst of it right now, for sure. AI could probably do half or more of those jobs right now, white collar. I think we'll hit AI in 2026, latest 2027. By 2029 to 2030, the power of AI will be equivalent to the entire human race combined, the intelligence, super intelligence level. That's profound.
Right.
And a year or less before AI is asking questions and solving problems that we don't understand. That'll be humanity's last exam test. And he says Grok 4 got around 52% on that test, on that scale. So how do society, how do nation states, how do governments and societies transition through this great filter of superintelligence without breaking up?
So it is the more profound version of the Industrial Revolution, right? Where agriculture economy became more powerful. We got better agriculture than when we started with, but in the 1800s, you needed 80%, 90% of your population to deliver the food so people didn't starve, right? And only 10% extra. That extra was basically the Renaissance, right? 1600, something like that, where 1500, where basically there was a small group of elites who then could shift from having to make food to just surviving, to providing art and everything else, because you had the time and no longer needed to work on just getting by, right? And so we then created so agriculture became 5% of the number of people, 5% of the economy, while providing more productivity. And then you had 95% more that became all of industry, right? Which is, making products and doing things, which then increased the entire global economy by over 100 times. We went from $1 trillion economy to over $100 trillion economy, right? All these segments did not exist before because you did not have the power to do it. And what was manual labor, using a person cutting the crops, someone, making something, you then had oil powered machines that would let you drive mass production of making 100 million cars per
Yeah.
year
The
versus
steam engine,
handcrafting.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, versus
And
handcrafting
then, yeah.
10,000, right? So the
Yeah.
scale of what you could do increased. Similarly, this will allow you to increase the scale of
Yeah.
what everyone is doing,
But the
right?
orders of magnitude are far, far higher.
Right, far higher, right? But the equivalence of what we go, like this 100x leap, 100x
Right.
leap over 100 years,
Right.
120 years, we can go perhaps in 20 and then
Yeah.
repeat it again, 2020.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't think of like the end state is a million times more. It is that each segment is a compressed, more accelerated version of
Yeah.
the Industrial Revolution applied to intelligence.
I
Okay.
just want to quote a few more lines for
Sure.
context, right?
Okay.
From what Elon said. He says, and this is about universal high income, peak doom, economics. How do we go towards universal high income instead of social unrest?
Right.
He says both. We'll have universal high income and social unrest. That's my prediction.
Right.
That scared the bejesus out of me. Okay. But at least he's been honest. And I
Right.
appreciate the fact I've been hammering it every single time, every opportunity that I can here
Yeah.
on Over the Horizon. That I think with too many technologists in Silicon Valley and around the world are looking at these developments through rose-tinted glasses.
Mhm.
Human society and structure has always been built on scarcity.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away because human nature is not going to change,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So we are going to go through social upheaval, and it's so refreshing
Mhm.
to hear Elon acknowledge that, because
Yeah.
we need someone like Elon to come out and say it,
Yeah.
because it's not just going to be a bed of roses. It's going to be a lot of thorns along the way. He
Right.
says we're basically demonetizing everything. Labor becomes a
Yeah.
cost of capex, and electricity. People can have whatever stuff they want, whatever
Yeah.
services they need. But
Right. So the thing is, so we talked about transformation from agriculture to industrial, primarily focused economy.
yeah,
80% of the people, 90% of the people had to change from I'm a farmer, I'm doing this work, and now I'm working in a factory, I'm doing other work, I'm working in an office, right? And then my children had that. Because it happened over 100 years, it was my grandparents, the father, my father's a factory worker, and then I am a white collar worker, right? So it was it was a disruptive but still more orderly thing because it was a generation by generation shift. Because this can happen in 10 to 20 years, it's I am a programmer, I am a lawyer, and then this year, I get a tool and I need to go from writing code to verifying code that AI makes, and then deploying it. So then my role shifts to that. So basically, it becomes we all getting promotions from I'm doing the work to I'm managing, overseeing the work on behalf of that.
right,
Or if it's not in the same company because the company doesn't adapt and say, okay, so then people get downside. That's a disruption. We're basically, okay, I don't need 1,000 people doing, X thing in this factory or this office work or this legal work. And then a smaller team does it. So they're 100 times more productive. So the smaller team is the one overseeing that thing. But then you can then create many new companies because
yeah. And
everyone can
by the
leverage the
way, we're
systems.
already seeing these changes that you're talking about.
Right, right.
Look at Salesforce and look at Agentforce, what they've planned.
Right.
We've seen so many banks across Wall Street downsize, so many companies stop hiring.
Right.
Klarna is a perfect example of the changes that have begun, and these began at Klarna a couple of years back.
Mhm.
So these are profound changes, and these are not kind of up in the ether. These have already taken place. The
Mhm.
transition has already begun.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that thing it's hitting the changes are happening now, and you need to prepare as much as you can. You need to one invest in the winners. So we have the opportunity to buy shares in public companies,
Yeah,
and we know you can if you say, okay, I'm not necessarily a futurist, but I know that um, Tesla, Nvidia, and the other tech companies will be a winner. This can actually be seen historically in the last 25, 30 years, where if people think, oh, I'm going to invest in the S&P 500, the stock index, and that has given me 8 to 10% return per year. That's wonderful. But if you break that down, there's a tech heavy S&P of the S&P 500, maybe 150, 100 companies, and then there's the 400 that are non-tech heavy. What's the performance difference there? Well, the non-tech companies have gotten 6% return. Instead of 8%, 10%, they've gotten 6% return per year over 25 years. What have the tech companies done? They've gotten about 15%, 20% return. The Magnificent Seven, or previously the FANG, which was Facebook, Apple, Netflix, and Google, whatever. Yeah. So you had, by those seven, they've done even better than the general tech companies. Yeah. So the traditional portfolio managers would say, well, there'll be reversion to the mean. There's going to be these the small tech or small business, smaller companies, small medium businesses, in the Russell 2000, they'll have a catch up, and I would say virtually no catch up. You'll have something where they're beaten down less, right? But then you need to focus on tech. Tech is the winner. Tech is swallowing the whole thing.
Okay, it's very interesting what you're saying. I have a question. Right. Okay, so whether you're a private investor, an accredited investor, or a retail investor, right? You're always looking for that new company that you can get in on the cheap. That's going to be disruptive. What is the realistic opportunity now, once we get AGI and ASI, artificial superintelligence, let's say the next 5 to 7 years, that you will really have the opportunity for small teams, for small startups, to do something completely revolutionary? I feel that window, that opportunity, is just narrowing with each passing year.
I think the number of small surprise winners could, I don't know, but reduce. Relative to the pie, it could be less, like you're saying, but you don't know. And it would be too difficult for ordinary people to be able to pick which ones are going to do well, right? And also to have a basket, because venture capital, people don't know, in Silicon Valley, it's traditionally been that they will make, they'll raise, say, $100 million. If they make $1 million bet over 100 companies, then they would say, if one of those 10 or 10 of those 100 or one of those 100 goes super big, right, becomes a $1 trillion company, then all my other bets are good, right? Everything else can go to crap and I'm still fine, right? Yeah. And then having 10 that are kind of like almost there, a little bit, it actually not the big deal.
Out of the park,
the returns are which ones hit it out of the park, right? So that's the traditional methodology, and that is a very difficult game, right? So VCs have had that, if you go to the history of VCs, where during the personal computer era versus the internet era versus the cloud era versus the SaaS era, and then now into this, it's very difficult, and the returns delivering extraordinary performance out of that is very difficult. And you have the elite VCs who would then have, where the team that is superior would then choose to go to, like, it's not like before, it'd be VCs, like before Andreessen Horowitz, Mark Andreessen created the Netscape browser.
A16 said,
A16, one of the mega, with a $2.10 billion.
Right.
When they started, they were the previous VCs were saying, I'm like a customer at a sushi restaurant, and I'm going to see what comes by in the conveyor belt, and I'm going to pick the company that I want to invest in. So they're very passive, and they had the luxury of choosing, because the supply-demand imbalance, supply of money relative to invest in the companies, was such that they could just wait and let the stuff come to them and choose, right? Now we've had an explosion of VCs, and then they have to compete to say, can I offer a better thing and deliver more? Anyway, so then there would not be the room for a broad number of regular investors to invest in it. They would be considered angel investors, potentially, if you were accredited. And angel investors did not get the best pickings of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Conversely, though, on the public markets, we know that the big tech winners have been winning, right? And they continue to rejuvenate themselves. And also, they're in now critical areas of the economy, like TSMC dominates advanced semiconductor chips, right? They will continue to have that position. Okay, as we roll forward, it's very difficult to displace TSMC because of the nature of the semiconductor business, fabs, etc. You could have a few other competitors. Samsung, Intel could come back, China could do some things, but
Yeah.
they
But
won't.
essentially, it's the same group of players,
Same group of players,
right?
right?
Some
So
are
then
depending
so you
on
need
where
to
you are.
focus on what is the group of players that will continue to perform there, and then you can.
But that's what I'm saying. What are the chances that you'll have a disruptor in a sector?
That will happen, but the thing is, will the disruptor, so what's the latest disruptor that has come up and become?
Okay, let's say the
trillion
defense sector. Let's take Anduril for example, right?
Right.
You have the five primes, and
Right.
we've seen the Trump administration express absolute exasperation with the way these five primes have been
do
behaving.
things.
Yeah.
Right.
And along comes Anduril, and it just turns everything upside down, right?
Right.
So Anduril is a massive disruptor, and there are
Right.
so many other smaller ones, right? So that's a
Right.
sector. Defense is a sector, but
So go to the defense sector. So defense sector has been dysfunctional relatively for the past 30 years, right? So people who look at it, like myself, who looked at the defense sector, is that it's a private club. Once they buy off some admirals and some generals who then do stuff for them, give them the big contracts, and then lo and behold, when those generals retire, then they get onto the board or get some kind of consulting contract to get paid off.
It's just a cigar and whiskey old boys club.
A cigar and whiskey old boys club. And then what's been happening? Oh, we have the F-16. It's become, the F-18 becomes, an F-20, and then becomes an F-35. But it's not really transformational. Oh, we got stealth, but in terms of the plane engine performance is not that much of a difference. And then the overall, now we have this wave of drone combat, which has occurred in Ukraine and Russia. There was a shift toward drones, but they did not make the legacy companies did not make the shift over to this new capability, where clearly there will be a drone dominant focus thing. You'll still have some planes, but we just had Ukraine, probably with some other support, and also Israel, where they shove drones in a shipping container and trucks, and then they get it beside an airbase, and then wreck the planes on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So that shift has occurred, just like you say that a similar shift historically occurred with military strategy and what systems would work. World War II, there was stuff happening there.
Or Palantir for that example, and what it does to real time sensory data.
So the entrepreneurs on this, in this specific example, like Palmer Luckey, who runs Anduril, or the other, or the people who run Palantir, they knew that once they got inside the fences of this field, they viewed the established players like a bunch of fat cattle.
Yeah,
it's like I'm the
so storming the castle took most of the effort. Once they breached through the castle walls, it's a slaughter.
Or it's a slaughter, because it was ripe for transformation.
Exactly. Now, my question is, how many of these sectors exist, and how does this change when you have ASI, A, and B? For retail investors, what does this mean? Okay, so Palantir, Tesla, NVIDIA. So these have been biggies that the retail community that's been paying attention has been able to capitalize on, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking you this is because I want to go back to something Elon said in this conversation with Peter Diamandis was, don't worry about squirreling money away for retirement in 10 or 20 years. It won't matter. Saving for retirement will be irrelevant if any of this is true. How do you plan for the future? How do retail investors, how do like HNIs, how do family offices? I'm not talking about Wall Street, but just the average investor.
Mhm.
How do you
So,
plan for this?
so when I came to Silicon Valley in 1996, right? Came from, I originally from Canada, went to Asia for 2 years after I got an MBA, did some work over in Asia because things were happening with China and stuff like that. I was over in Hong Kong and Taiwan. And then in 1996, the internet's happening, .com is happening, so I come to that. And, that was a very productive period for people like me who are doing computer programming and that kind of thing. So the opportunity there, but in terms of investment, I had not freed my mind about. I was still having the MBA doctrination about diversification, about buying indexes, or being careful in buying individual stocks and all that kind of stuff. So I still had that doctrinaire thing in my head in 1996 to 2000, and then I was always thinking, me, the futurist, I know, hey, Apple's trying to do great. This Google thing is doing good. I knew intellectually, hey, Google's going to win now. At a certain point, YouTube, the Yahoo was the search engine, but it was going down. And so I was in the midst of it. I'm in Silicon Valley. I'm realizing this is happening, but I did not flip my head to, I got to load up on Google, right? Even though, like, I met Sergey Brin and Larry Page at a nanotechnology event, right? Where it's like, hey, meet these two guys. They're doing this interesting startup company, right? And I just let that flow by.
So, but hindsight is 2020, right?
Right. But the point was that there's the hindsight thing, but the thing is still happening now, right?
Yeah.
Where
Okay.
people can know
Correct.
that, Tesla will solve Robotaxi, and the companies that are innovating, true innovators, people know who the true innovators are, right? And they can say, they can compare, Tesla to Google compared to the Yahoo company that's established, right?
Yeah.
And they can see who's innovating more, or they can see this particular sector. Like before, it was Intel. Okay, people can just buy Intel. It has a dominant chip position, it has a monopoly chip position. So long as it has a monopoly chip position, it is a winner, right? It may not become, because it's already big, it won't necessarily go. But people who had invested in the 90s into Intel, they know, okay, it's in all the chip processors. It's going to have domination for a decade or more, so long as they don't screw up. You need to know, okay, they're going to screw. If they start screwing up, then they're losing their monopoly. Then you got to, like, okay, now I got to reconsider, right? But you can hold a basket of technology plays. But I know that I shouldn't, if I'm back then, I should be investing in Google, I should be whatever, but I should not be investing in Boeing or something else. Like, there's technology is not advancing, not innovating. And so metrics I would look at would be things like, in terms of innovation, is speed of introducing a revolutionary product, right? Speed of introducing something that can be truly scalable, right? So that is something that you need to, as a way to assess these things. But it's, there's things happening where, okay, TSMC is still dominant, ASML still dominant. So it's like, what is a critical segment, and then what will keep going, right? And then also, what is, it's AI that matters. So I'm not looking at SaaS software. I'm looking at who is critical for the AI stack. So it's all AI. So what's critical in the AI stack? If I have to choose 5 winners, right? Then that goes back to things like, does it make sense for me to buy all 3 companies that were working on CRISPR technology, right? So,
So you spread out the risk.
well, the thing is, you have to, if you can't pick a definitive winner, you do not. Then you have to say, I'm not going to force it. I don't know. It's going to be one of these 5. So that goes to the VC methodology of, I got to bet on all 5, and then the fact that I'm going to lose money on 4, the one that wins will outweigh that. Like, if that segment will be there, right? But it has to be, you may need to know something about, but if you can avoid that and say, okay, maybe I just won't pick all 5. I'll just go down a layer and say, all these 5 will buy product from NVIDIA, all these 5 will buy product from Broadcom and whatever, and stay at that level and say, I'm not going to try and pick these 5 because I don't know which one. I don't want to bet on all 5. I just go down one layer, which will win no matter what, right? And then go there. So where you can know, no matter what, this will be okay, or virtually no matter what, 99% or whatever. You can't know for sure because disruption can happen, right? But you can be pretty sure that what areas will survive this change. You can try and think that way, or get someone who can help make those picks for you.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important to be a skeptic and not get carried away by the hype, because there's obviously going to be hype. There's going to be marketing. One of the most undervalued traits you can develop, according to me, is being able to be a judicious skeptic and knowing when to be skeptical and to what extent, because you don't want to go full negative, because then you're missing the point as well. You need to be optimistic, but you need to be skeptical as well. All right, so I want, there's so much I want to hit, so many milestones I want to hit in this chat with you, and let's just move on to another very important one that you also brought up in your article. Elon has had a change of mind.
Yes.
He now believes in anti-aging. What's going on?
Right. So for people who don't know, Elon for a long time felt that longevity and aging, like he felt, well, he's working really super hard, running 6-8 companies, working 100-hour plus weeks, and so then he was thinking, well, if when my time is up, it'll be okay for me to die. I don't need to have life extension, and he didn't think that he needed anti-aging. He was also concerned that if you have anti-aging longevity, where you increase lifespan, that it could ossify society. That you'd have, like, you don't change people's minds, but the old people who resist die, and then society moves forward, right? But in the conversation, Peter Diamandis makes the point that he's not killing the CEO of Ford or GM. He's just replacing their companies, right? So you don't have to have people die. You can just outcompete them, and then their influence on the world decreases on that. So it doesn't, not happening because the change in the world not happening because people are dying. It's because the change is happening. So it is not dependent upon that. And there's always people concerned about the dictators, but like Maduro got captured and he got replaced. He didn't have to die. He didn't have to age out. And then it's looking like the Iranian regime is going to get replaced, and people didn't have to die. It's the change, is due, and then you can make it happen. So then I think the big thing that's changing his mind about it is that he knows he's creating superintelligence. He knows he's going to massively expand the energy available, literal energy for AI, from massive space-based solar power to thousands of times where our current levels of energy are. And that this will create a wondrous future, something that he wants to. He's seen that and saying, I'm making this thing happen. If I have an ordinary lifespan in 30, 40 years, then we'll only just established some things on Mars, or done gotten the moon base going, and we've done more. We've gotten 100 times the power we have now, but it's going to get even better, and he knows it. And he's saying that
I think he also has a sense that he needs to shepherd this transition,
right?
Not just initiate the building of a human colony on Mars, a moon base alpha, and all of that. But he needs to shepherd it through a certain phase. And it's really reassuring to have heard him say that, because by default, that also means that he's taking his own security a lot more seriously. And he said that at the shareholder meeting.
Yeah.
But he's also looking at the big picture.
Mhm.
And there was a time, and Elon tends to drill down really deep and focus
Yeah.
very fiercely on certain things. But I get the sense that, okay, I think this is also a bit of kind of a factor of him aging.
Mm.
That he's growing as an individual.
Mhm.
And he's also acknowledging the fact that there are larger forces at play. There's a big picture, and that he needs to kind of be around, hang around.
And then he was discussing, and Diamandis and his other panelists were discussing that doubling our lifespan is something that
Yeah.
seems very doable.
Yeah.
The longevity escape velocity seems
Yeah.
plausible. For people to know, that means that we medically can make it so that people will add a year of life expectancy every year. So once you're adding 1 year every year, that means you can drastically reduce how many people die. Ideally, you want to get a bit ahead of that. So if you can rejuvenate people and just keep adding 1 year, it's like I don't have to make you immortal right away. I just have to get the progress going where I'm adding 1 year for every year that passes. And I think that is a plausible scenario to achieve. So those, and there's technical details he didn't go into, but basically he was now willing to say longevity escape velocity is plausible. The doubling goal is something that's plausible. If you can achieve a doubling over the next 20, 30 years, you basically got a century of a longevity escape velocity, right? And then if technology is improving with superintelligence, then and medicine's improving, then we should get to radically extended lives.
Okay. So before we move on, I want to just take a bit of a pause for a few seconds and just read out these words that really stood out for me. Elon says, "I've long thought longevity or semi-immortality is an extremely solvable problem. I don't think it's a particularly hard problem. You're programmed to die. If you can change the program, you will live longer. The clock must be incredibly obvious. Nobody has an old left arm and a young right arm."
Right. It's an engineering perspective on
It
what's
is.
going
is.
on.
Yeah.
I think people who've studied the problem more, like Aubrey de Grey, who look at that, I think would have a more nuanced view of it. I don't think Elon has spent enough time working on the particular issues to have a more nuanced view of it, because he's been busy working on creating superintelligence and reasonable rockets. But I think that the fact that he's open to it, there are the community where what $10 billion worth of investment has gone into anti-aging. A few hundred companies exist. Many ideas are there. I think progress can be made. Like once there is a inflection point where it becomes mainstream acceptable and more well-funded. That when you get up to over $100 billion per year, up from the $10 billion per year, or maybe $1 trillion, that you will no longer be resource constrained
Yeah.
on the development and solving of the work. But it is more complicated. There is many different areas, mainly replacing or repairing aging damage, and then but some other concepts. If you can have well-funded views on all these avenues, I think we can make rapid progress. From someone who's
and just look at the success that he's had with Neuralink, right? That's a case in point. That just goes to prove exactly what you just said. BCI, or brain computer interface, has been a problem that scientists have been working on for decades.
Yeah.
Along comes Elon with the right amount of money, the ability to choose the right team, the right focus, and to just point them in the right direction. And look at the success of Neuralink. So if it doesn't violate the laws of the universe, maybe he has a point.
The other thing is that there is a non-biological approach to immortality, which actually is a Neuralink scenario. So looking at
transhumanism. And someone, I think, stood up and asked him a question at the shareholder meet whether they could upload themselves to a Neuralink. And so here's my problem with it, right? So our brains, it really boils down to the question of what is conscience and what is our soul, the human soul, and who are we? What does our soul represent as part of us? are we our brain, or is our soul / mind separate from our brain? So is our brain essentially a meat computer that our soul uses to interact with reality? If that is the case, and there is science to point in that direction, of course, the materialists will counter that, but there are enough number of neuroscientists who've studied this problem, and I mean, the jury is out. I think we're trending more towards a feeling or a conclusion based on evidence that there is a human soul that is independent of the brain and the body, which neither is created nor destroyed, like energy. So the question is, if Neuralink taps into your meat computer, which is your brain, it taps into your motor areas, it reads your signals. Are you the signals in your brain, or are you something more? And that's the question that transhumanism has to answer. And that goes right back, circling back to the point that you were trying to make.
So my scenario for this thing is, if we increase, from an engineering perspective, if we increase the bandwidth for our biological computer to a larger supercomputer, which would larger in terms of more capability, more power processing, right? So if you say the biological computer, and we have a gigabit per second, some high fidelity, super high resolution communication between my biological brain and, let's say this has molecular nanocomputers inside, and has 1 million times the compute of my biological brain, right? In this setup here, that if I have ultra constant communication, and if I have it while I'm alive, right, and I'm communicating to this thing, and the technological hardware computer is getting more and more powerful, then I have over decades constantly have communication between my biological brain and my hardware brain, right? Then if the hardware brain is 1 million times more, then if my biological brain dies and I've had this constant seamless communication between it, and it also has all my experiences, then if it's 0.001%, it becomes like a small stroke. I lost a chunk of my brain. And the fact that I have a biological, non-biological portion is, then that goes to, if that's still me. I would have continuity of consciousness, where my consciousness seemingly extends from my biological to this non-biological brain, right? So then there wouldn't be an upload. It wouldn't be like a 1 second upload. It'd be like I'm living with it for the last 10, 20 years of my biological life. And then does that now have that bridged over? Is a, so then, the consciousness aspect would be taken care of, because I have constant continuous consciousness in both areas, right? So then, and the question of, soul or other things is, we'll have to find out, it's like, based upon doing these kind of,
exactly. But I mean, to my audience and to you, Brian, if you're interested in reading more about this, I would highly encourage you to read the book called The Immortal Mind: A Neurosurgeon's Case for the Existence of the Soul. This is a book by Michael Egnor and Denise O'Leary. It's a fascinating work, full of references to a lot of scientific studies. So this is not, hogwash. It's based on science,
right?
And it asks some very interesting questions.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on. Starship. Elon says 10,000 starships per year is what he's looking at. These are mind-boggling numbers. I thought we were trying to wrap our heads around 1,000 starships a year, and here comes Elon and says, let's just increase it by an order of magnitude.
Right, and also the number of launches and stuff, because those starships will be launching 20 times, 50 times a year. So comparing it to the airplane industry, the number of commercial passenger jets is about 40,000. Boeing and Airbus make about 2,000 in combined wide body jets per year. So some would say, wow, you're going to make more big rockets than Boeing and Airbus make wide body jets. And that would be yes, because it costs $200 to $350 million for each of the wide body jets. While Elon is reducing the cost of the Starship rocket, the engines down to $250,000 each. So a $250,000 engine, if I need 40 engines, that's $10 million total. And the bottom part would be like 8 million, the top part being 2 million, right? So then if you say the rest of it, which is mostly stainless steel and other parts, then I could make a complete rocket for $30 million at scale, right? So then that'd be 1/10 the cost of those other planes. So then I'm actually only making $300 million worth of rocket hardware every year, right? So then it's a $600 billion industry versus a $300 billion industry. So then the economics don't work that bad. And then with that number of engines, that number of rockets, 10,000 per year, you could then get scaling down to about $10 per kilogram, which is again comparable to the airplane industry. And then the 40,000 airplane industry for passengers, another 20,000 or so for cargo. Then there's smaller planes and that kind of thing. So it's about the size of the airplane industry that we'd be looking at. But you'd be looking at something that's 20 times faster and 10 times lower cost. So you're saying it's a massive replacement of something that's vastly superior in terms of cost, in terms of performance.
Yeah, because he says we're going to do 1 million tons a year to orbit. 1 million tons.
Right.
We've got to get the cost down well below under $100 a kilogram.
Right.
Fully and rapidly reusable rockets are at the limit of human intelligence, but it's possible. We're doing it with Starship. We basically rebuild the internet in space with laser links. 9,000 satellites of Starlink constellation up there. Remember, don't take anything that Elon says lightly, because you look up, there are over 9,000 satellites, Starlink satellites, in the biggest constellation right now. He says we need a permanently crewed moon base, and to build that up as fast as possible, not just a remake of a 60s movie where you hop around and go home.
Mhm.
On Mars, he says we could shoot for Mars by 2028, 29, 2026 is a distraction.
Mhm. Yeah. So unfortunately, for this year, if he tried to push for the unmanned mission this year, he'd have a limitation on how many launches he can get off this year. Very lucky to get off 100, more likely to end up with 20 or 30. He needs to use those for the committed NASA moon tests he needs to do, which with refueling means, he needs at least 20 on that.
Yeah.
So to get off 5 or 10 launches that could then get you one rocket to go to Mars, it's just very difficult based on where we are. The timing is just very hard. Yeah.
Okay.
But the 10,000 per year is like, he's looking at scale of like, I'm going to replace the airplane industry, which people talk about competitors. It's like no other competitor is at this scale. He already has going to have like 90% of all payload to space. He has 70% of all satellites going up there, and then soon 90% of satellites. So the incredible monopoly he will have on launch and on scale is like, someone's going to go to our current airplane industry levels and scale versus someone else handcrafting Zeppelins or something like that. Like a custom artisan production versus, mass production at 1,000 times the level that anyone else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. A few more points I want to hit rapidly with you before we close. And these are all important. They're all happening in the past a few days, all equally important. Let's start off with that big kerfuffle at CES with Jensen coming out and talking about, what is it, Alpamayo?
Alpamayo,
yeah. And there was this huge, controversy about whether FSD, is it going to trump FSD? I mean, a storm in a teacup is what I think, right?
Right.
We saw the stock react to it, and let's just first quickly listen to this soundbite.
Tesla's FSD stack is completely world class. They've been working on it for quite some time. It's world class not only in the number of miles it has, but it's world class in the way that it's designed The way they do training to data collection and curation, synthetic data generation, all of their simulation technologies. Of course, the latest generation is end-to-end full self-driving, meaning it's just one large model that is end-to-end trained. And so Elon's AV system is in every way 100% state-of-the-art. Okay, and so I'm really quite impressed by the technology. I have it and I drive it in our house, and it works incredibly well. The Alpha Mayo was designed for two different differences. The first one is NVIDIA doesn't build self-driving cars. We build the full stack and the technology for everybody else to build self-driving cars. And we build, for example, for the humanoid robotics, we build 3 computers. We have 3 computers here too. The training computer, the simulation computer, and also the robotics computer, which is self-driving car computer. We have software stacks across all of that. Our customers can use all of it, or some of it, parts of it, whatever makes sense for them. And so we're working with the entire automotive industry. Everybody from, of course, Tesla for their training system, Waymo for the car computer, Neuro, I think they just announced that they're going to be in a Robotaxi business, Lucid just announced one, isn't that right? Lucid and Uber just announced it, and NVIDIA is part of that. And so our system is really quite pervasive because we're a technology platform provider. And so that's the primary difference. There's no question in my mind that of the billion cars that are on the road today, in another 10 years' time, hundreds of millions of them will have great autonomous capability. And so this is likely one of the largest, fastest growing technology sectors in the next decade, over the next decade. So I think this is a very, very important sector. And then the last thing that we do is we open source everything too. And so if a customer would like to use our model that we train, they're welcome to do that. If they would like to use our model technology but train it themselves, we even help them do that. We're not a self-driving car company. We just want to enable the world's autonomous industry. Everything that moves should be autonomous.
I think people just got ahead of themselves and without understanding what Jensen was trying to do. Look, he was at CES. It's his job to hype NVIDIA and what NVIDIA has. But as Elon says, and has said so often in the past, prototypes are easy. Production is really, really difficult, right? And this was a demo.
Right.
It wasn't a product.
Right.
It was a demo.
Right. Yeah, and it's not a complete system. It's like if Tesla offered to the all these car makers, you can license FSD. We have it working. We can help you to install it in your cars. And they were basically saying, well, we're like 4 years away. Once we take what you have that's working, fully complete all the data, everything sorted out, it will take us 4 years to get it into our cars and get it out deployed, right? So this system is less than FSD. It doesn't have all the data. It doesn't have 6 billion, 7 billion miles of driving data. And 7 billion miles of driving data is like, it's like 100 years of driving, right? So in terms of like adding up all the video and that kind of stuff.
And I think Elon said it'll take about 10 billion to really for unsupervised FSD to mature as a product.
Right.
So very close.
Right.
And these are S-curves. These are not like straight lines.
Right. And then it's basically like every million miles you get something really unusual, something that was like, really weird incidents with pedestrians and that kind of stuff. Until you get that information, then you cannot make the solution or have the system learn to
that scenario.
Or that scenario. So he's saying, here, have this stuff, install it, and then get your data over some number of years, depending on how many cars you have, and then it'll work. So let's work step by step. One is deploy it. Well, for the last several years, every Tesla car has the cameras and the hardware 3 or hardware 4. $2,000 per car into 9 million cars. So they
Yeah.
put $18 billion worth of hardware over many years onto the road, ready to go, right? So with this thing that Jensen now stage, you need to have the NVIDIA chip inside your car. You need to have the software deployed. You need to have your over-the-air updates deployed. So how long to put it into a new car? Your car doesn't have it yet. You gotta have it, need to have it going forward. So then Jensen has to produce all those chips. He has to get to 1 million cars, right? So getting any of that at scale deployed will take a couple of years, right? And then in parallel, you need to then start having a proper over-the-air update and then deploy and gather information into a system. So again, I need to have some cloud system, some supercomputer, a Cortex system that is sucking up this information. Again, not built. So, and then the Jensen system still needs LiDAR. So
Yeah, exactly.
Robotaxi LiDAR, we've made 5,000 Robotaxi LiDAR cars total in the world ever.
Yeah.
So that means we make maybe 1,000, 2,000 cars each year. So that means we made 10,000 Robotaxi grade LiDAR. Did the companies that make the Robotaxi grade LiDAR, did they make a bunch of factories ready to go to make 100,000, 1 million cars? No, they did not, because you were not paying them before 2 years ago to do that.
Exactly.
So then now I'm going to invest in Robotaxi grade LiDAR factories. So then, okay, we haven't heard the deals announced, but then they would say, okay, we're going to put $1 billion, $10 billion into massive Robotaxi grade LiDAR factories. That I get the money now. I then have a factory built in Chinatown, a year and a half, right? And I can start producing them, right? But again, doesn't exist yet. So none of it exists in the car, none of this in the factory, none of this in the supply chain, none of it exists, right? And then I got to gather the data and complete the system, right? So again, 5 years, they already turned down Elon saying, I already have something that works. You can actually join with me and get up to the same speed. And none of them could step up to it, right? None of them could step to it. Not because they said, I don't want to have a system that works. And then I'm going to get a system that doesn't work, that's 99% complete. And I'm going to take something that's 40% complete that must be deployed, right? So
when you say none of them, you mean car companies, auto manufacturers.
Right, car companies, Robotaxi companies, they don't have a complete system, right?
Yeah.
And then the LiDAR companies, like Waymo, Apollo Go, is okay, I'm going to go to 20 cities. I'm going to go from 2,500 cars today to maybe 5,000, 6,000 cars in 3 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's not scaling. That's not going to millions, right? So if we can get to millions of cars, it's going to be the 9 million Tesla cars that are on the road now, the 2 million that are adding each year. That's the system that can get to millions because you have it deployed, you have it working. So none of this changes any of that. It just means that in 2030, whoever's still alive and has the companies that are still alive that are still selling cars and doing stuff, if they're still around and they started the program now or start before and accelerate it to something, they have something that they can then scale, right?
Yeah.
But you're starting with you've given Elon a 5-year lead. You've given the a 10-year lead, 15-year lead. You've given someone who is the most, the best entrepreneur ever, and you've said, okay, have that lead.
And the most
I'm going to
relentless.
catch up. Yeah, most relentless. Yeah, I'm going to try and catch up.
Yeah. In fact, I think James Dahmer really set the house on fire when let me bring up his post. This is what he says, okay? He says, no, this is not competition for FSD any more than Lego releasing a space shuttle kit is competition to the Falcon 9.
Yeah.
Okay, the last paragraph is really, he says, there's no scenario in which a company building on top of this new development kit, NVIDIA's development kit, will even slightly dent Tesla's robotaxi market opportunity. I wish it were that easy. Building an FSD-like system is still a technically challenging, resource-intensive, and commercially fraught task. It's kind of a miracle that any company did it once. That's true. Remember all the pain that the Tesla FSD team went through with heuristic code for years and years and years.
Yeah.
What was it, like 300,000 lines of code or more?
Yeah, that's right.
Before they switched to a full neural network?
Right.
That was pain. That was torture.
Right.
I mean, it's easy for companies to ride Tesla's coattails because they've put in all the effort, the time, and the energy, and everything, the blood, sweat, and tears to make this decision, saying, okay, heuristic code is not going to work. Let's switch to a neural net, right?
Yeah.
And of course, it's easier to do that, but still, it is not enough, nowhere near enough to catch up, right?
Right.
And the March of the Nines, and I want to quickly pull up this. So Phil Beisel had also commented about this, talking about the March of the Nines and how difficult it is for edge cases, and as you earlier said, how long it's going to take to meet maybe that one scenario, the 1 mile in a million miles. And Elon said roughly 10 billion miles of training data is needed to achieve safe, unsupervised self-driving. Reality has a super long tail of complexity, the March of the Nines. So a lot to take in there. I think a lot to consider, right?
Right.
People are not looking at this in the right context.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on. What happened to Waymos? This is what happened to Waymos, if you're wondering. Within the past 48 hours, we've seen a Waymo get stuck onto the metro. Is it a train, a tram, a metro track? Yeah. It's a super dangerous place to be.
I think it's on Caltrain or something like that, or was it Arizona? Okay, yeah, light rail, Arizona.
So this is far from desirable for a Waymo to be stuck here. Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think it was a day later that you had a similar kind of an incident, but this time it was in Beverly Hills. And you had another Waymo stuck at an intersection, and it needed intervention. So even when you look at the most successful LiDAR-based robotaxi platform that exists out there, and this is Google's Waymo that has been at it for years, far longer than Tesla FSD, they're still running into these basic problems, which are so dangerous.
Right. And then there was the power outage in San Francisco just before around Christmas time, where the lights, the street lights went out, and then also I think it also stressed the cell phone network. So then that meant they couldn't communicate as well with it, and they had to take the entire Waymo system offline, and they had, again, blocking of traffic in intersections and stuff like that. So people who don't look at the statistics, out of, say, Austin, out of 120 some incidences with Waymo, there's collisions, there's other stuff, but there's a vast majority, 50% or more of those incidences. So basically, like one incident per car every 3 to 6 months. They block traffic and have these things where they get stuck. So this is a very common problem that they have. And the interventions that they have is having the car call out to a person to say, hey, I'm stuck in the intersection. I'm stuck on this light rail track. Help me do something and get me out of this thing. So it's not that they're, in the split second, I'm going to run into something, because they do have systems that try to avoid that. But they have this, I'm confused, I'm lost, I don't know what to do thing. Which the LiDAR doesn't help them do. Because like LiDAR, I detect there's an object coming at me at 50 miles per hour. That is irrelevant to the fact that I don't know what to do in this intersection. The AI, the dumb part of it, is it doesn't know what to do. And so that's the fragility, the brittleness of their system. That it's like if you do bowling, right? You go to a kid's party where it's like 5-year-old kids doing bowling. You in the gutters where the ball could go into the gutter, you have little bumpers that keep the thing in the lane. This is what we're looking at. It's like I see a bunch of kids, they're bowling and they're rolling down, they're hitting the bumpers and not letting it go into the gutter. But they're not bowling well, right? So this is basically what the self-driving with LiDAR is, where I have training wheels, where I have gutters to let me play the game, because I suck at it. I'm not good enough. You should not be having these gutters and things in a fragile system. You need to have it actually do the thing of actually bowling strikes all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know when we're going to get over this whatever you may call it, this kind of fake news thing in
Yeah.
Trump's words.
Yeah.
But it's people need to understand. I just wish that the discourse online was a lot more technical outside the Tesla investor community, retail investor community,
Right.
right? Because it's just there's so much of a dependence on media headlines, and unfortunately, for various reasons, the media doesn't always get it right.
Right.
Okay, let's move on. Interesting developments. Elon back with the Trumps, POTUS and FLOTUS. Elon seems pretty secure in the Republican camp, in the Trump camp, ahead of the midterms. Interesting connotations, implications. Elon saying, had a lovely dinner last night with POTUS and FLOTUS. 2026 is going to be amazing. This, of course, was from the 4th of January. But that picture there has a lot of significance this year for the midterms. Also, for a lot of the legislation and the policy making that needs to be put in place for Tesla,
Robotaxi.
for Robotaxi, autonomous cars across the country, the federal policy. So
Yeah, federal policy. Yeah, so
where do
looking to
you
increase
think that's
that
happening?
from 2,000 cars permitted as a Robotaxi to 90,000 cars.
2,000 across the board, across the country, all companies.
Right. Yeah, they increase that to 90,000. So that's a discussion that should hopefully get approved soon. But having, I think that if Elon's executing all these things in terms of space, in terms of space AI, he's clearly, and his company, SpaceX, Tesla, XAI, are strategically important. Geopolitically important. And so that's already been proven, things like the Starlink for Israel or Starlink for Ukraine, all those kind of things. So it just makes sense that someone who is delivering so much technologically and being able to alter the GDP of the country and the world, you need to have a president who's working closely with them. So they need each other, and they need to work closely together. It's the obvious thing to do, and you need to be collaborating, working together between the most powerful government, the most powerful leader with the most powerful business leader. It's foolish for anything other than to happen, and it's good that they're clearly working together. And the other thing would be that it's clear that the other side has not gotten itself to realize that they need to, work with Elon. It's like before some.
Well, you had Kamala come out and make a comment, I think a few weeks back, that it was perhaps a mistake not to invite Elon to that event where Mary Barra was credited with leading the EV industry in America and all of that.
Yeah.
But that was just, come on.
Yeah. It'd be like Henry Ford and Edison having some arguments with FDR or something like that, saying, I'm going to hound Ford and Edison and Rockefeller, who has all the oil and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to have arguments with them and do stuff with them, leading up to, like World War II or something like that. It'd be just insane.
Yeah. Yeah, not the attitude you want to have when nation building is
Right.
paramount importance. Yeah. Okay, so there's the Jan 13th hearing. There's the House of Representatives committee that's going to look at this whole question of raising the number to 90,000. Just looking at the agenda, but there's so I can't bring up the agenda now. But there's a list of very interesting things that are on the docket at this hearing, and I think what is your sense? I know the Tesla retail community and a lot of the leaders in it, including Tesla Boom and Mama, are trying to put the word out and asking people to write to their representatives and all of that. Do you think the die is cast, that these are all formalities? I think there's a sense of urgency, realization and urgency, even amongst policymakers, that this needs to go ahead.
Yeah. I think there's a sense of urgency needs to happen, that the deployment can happen. It will transform the economy. That AI, already AI data centers and that deployment has already given us 2 quarters of 4% GDP growth, versus only 2%. So if these other things start happening, we could go to 6%, 8%, 10% GDP growth, and slow walking, getting in the way of that, is harmful to the how fast we can get to this future economy. So I think that they realize how much of a incredible economic boom they could have. It'd be like, let's slow down the internet, for 2 years from 1996 to 1998 while we work out whatever. It's like, no, you let things go because we need to have the transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just a couple more to hit. This interesting piece by Business Insider. Of course, I've been looking forward to this case. This is Elon versus OpenAI and Sam Altman.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best possible news for haters of Elon and XAI and everybody who criticized Elon for saying that, for claiming that he had something to do with this, with the launch and the creation of OpenAI. This is going to go to jury trial. This the California judge said Elon Musk's lawsuit against OpenAI and Sam Altman can proceed to trial. She rebuffed OpenAI's lawyers' efforts to end the case. She also said that there was a lot of evidence that justified it going ahead. And of course, this is all about OpenAI and Sam Altman and team not sticking to the promise they made to Elon that OpenAI would be a not-for-profit entity.
Right.
Spicy, exciting times ahead.
Right. So OpenAI wants to go public. They want to become a for-profit company, and they have to overcome the serious legal challenges that how many years ago, when they were getting funded by Elon Musk, that they created a nonprofit with all the formal legal structure for that. So I guess the question is, how good were Elon's lawyers at the time in crafting those documents, and how good are Sam Altman, OpenAI's lawyers now in getting them out of that? So it's something that I'm not expert enough into the legal things, but basically it's a legal war, and it seems like it would be difficult to creatively get out of those commitments. But we'll find out.
The most important part is going to be discovery. I think this is going to really blow the lid off a lot of what was going on inside OpenAI, not only at the time of its formation and creation, but also recently in the past few years when we've had so many top techies at OpenAI leave for various reasons. Okay, just one last thing I wanted to hit on with you, Brian, before we close. So this is something that is not really talked about that much, but it has a massive network effect. This is the supercharger for business program that Tesla Charging has. And let me just share this tab also. Okay, so what is the opportunity now for private citizens and business owners to get involved in and just expand this to a level that we've not seen so far? There's a lot of potential here and a lot of opportunity for private citizens and business owners to get involved. This is big bucks. I mean, go back to the gas station boom, right? You didn't just have these, Shell and BP and all of these other companies set up their own networks. You also had private citizens and businesses do the same for them. And then you have the model of the Tesla Diner and everything that it offers. It's a one-stop shop. Do you think Tesla could perhaps allow kind of a franchising model for people who want to open supercharger stations and then allow them to have a franchisee Tesla Diner? Seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I think that those kind of things are possible, and that. But the main thing is to get the breadth of deployment out. That we may have like 70,000 superchargers Tesla owned, but if just like if you have fully owned, really desirable hamburger chain, that would be the In-N-Out Burger, grew out of California. All franchises, all stores owned by the In-N-Out family, literally the family that owns In-N-Out Burger, and they got to 1,000, and they make superior burgers, right? But McDonald's with a franchise model got to 100,000 things, so you can get to far more. So if you want greater reach, then
And this is a global network, remember. So it's
yeah.
more like the McDonald's model than
right.
anything else.
Right. So I think based on that kind of thing, you should be able to get at least 10 times and maybe 100 times more reach out of it. And that would enable people to tap into more of the spare power in the grid, because we have, say, 1,000 power plants, and then you have 10,000, 100,000 of the transformers distributing the power. And so if I have in the bunch of businesses in some area that now go to the charging, you can get the power that's available in that area fully leveraged for EVs, which I think can get you 5-10% of the total power properly distributed for EVs and for trucking. The semi trucks will use about 20 times, 40 times the electricity versus a car, because the trucks will run constantly and they're bigger, right?
Yeah.
So each one of those will need a lot more power. So getting this deployment out will let you get to scale, which goes to the point of, if I can get to 1 million Robotaxis, 5 million Robotaxis, 200,000 trucks, this would be the only ways to really get to that scale, which it goes to from the beginning of our talk about what do you do to get to scale.
Yeah.
This is a fundamental restriction on your infrastructure to get to, do I want to be this level or be 10 times more? I need to get 10 times more. I need to do things to get to that level.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for people to participate in the Tesla success story, because let's not forget, Tesla is extremely cost effective at building its own superchargers.
Yes.
Nobody can beat them. Nobody can match them, come close to matching them.
Right.
And so if you have all of that, the cost advantage of that, and you open it up to everybody, I think it's a massive network effect that's just waiting to explode.
Right.
Massive potential. All right, Brian.
Okay.
Thank
Wonderful.
you so much. It has been such a lovely chat with you. I'm so excited. We're going to do this every Thursday from here on. So appreciative of your time and you letting me pick your brain on everything AI, space, and robotics related. And I'm really looking forward to more with you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.